Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to season 2, episode 5 of Transformation Weight Control podcast, where we present to you the real information. And you will see tonight, as with other podcasts, that we have the best expert tonight, and she has a broad range of talent and skills. And I'm going to introduce her in a moment. First, introduce Alex Dashinsky, my co-host, who
Hello.
without Alex, none of this would happen because, as I always say, it took me 6 months to learn how to use Zoom, and Alex is the tech guy. So it's great. But listen, don't click away, because if you click away, what's going to end up happening is you're just not going to be as smart as you would be if you stay, because you're going to learn things tonight and hear things truly that you haven't heard before. Dr. Rogers is a real expert in exercise physiology and more, and I'm going to introduce her formally in a moment. But we're going to have a conversation about a range of items related to your body weight and to muscle and what kind of exercise and all sorts of things that you haven't heard before, and it's all going to be true. So if you click away, I can't help you. So stay where you are. Last time I said, don't turn that dial, and Alex yelled at me because he showed my age, because we don't use dials anymore. There's no more dial on a television. But don't go away. All right, so I'd like to introduce our guest, Dr. Renee Rogers. She earned her bachelor's degree in exercise science from Youngstown State University in Youngstown, Ohio, and then went on to earn her master's degree and doctoral degree, so the PhD, in exercise physiology, at the University of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. She is senior scientist at the University of Kansas Medical Center, Department of Internal Medicine, in the Division of Physical Activity and Weight Management. She's also an expert, and this is very important and interesting, she is also an expert in biobehavioral healthy lifestyle intervention. So not only is she like a real scientist, but she also has a strong interest in the behavior of weight control and exercise and so forth. So she has a nice range. So she is an expert in biobehavioral healthy lifestyle intervention and platform design, with a focus on using technology, media, and relevant engagement strategies to promote long-term adherence to exercise, which, as you know, you probably might have a treadmill at home with your clothing hanging on it. And Dr. Rogers is the person to speak to about that.
No, my treadmill
Alex doesn't have that. Alex wakes up at 2
doesn't even
o'clock.
have dust on it.
All right. So she also wears many hats, not just as a research scientist, as I said, but also has worked as a practitioner, consultant, and previously directed health and wellness programming at her previous institutions. As a research scientist and practitioner, she performs what we call translational research. That is, she applies what she learns from her research into clinical practice and speaks regularly to educate clinicians, applied health professionals, and patients. She's currently published 51 scientific papers in peer-reviewed journals, so serious journals, not like, lay population things like Prevention Magazine, with 5 more in the works. She's contributed chapters in 6 different books, speaks nationally and internationally, and has more faculty positions, current and previous national research grants, university supervisory roles, committee assignments, scholarly awards, and features in popular and social media and blogs than we have time to list. Her CV, curriculum vitae, her resume, is 33 pages. It took half an hour to read through it. So she's very qualified. And the last thing I want to say, to plug her, and then I'm going to let her speak finally, is that unlike many research scientists I know, and I've worked with many, she walks the talk. In other words, not only is she a basic scientist, but she's also a certified group fitness instructor, an indoor cycling instructor, and a yoga instructor. So she incorporates these skills and experiences into her research interventions when working with her patients. So she covers the gamut of things. And we are super lucky to have her tonight. And my graduate degree is in exercise physiology. As hers, I have a master's, she has a doctorate, but we have a lot in common, which is amazing. And that's what you'll find out. So, Dr. Rogers, welcome. And would you like to introduce yourself or say anything else that I have not already said?
I need you to come and introduce me wherever I go. Actually, every morning, could you wake up and give me a nice intro like that so I can go on with my day? This is
Yes.
the best. I love it.
Dr. Albert Ellis, the psychologist, I did a lot of training at their institute, and he's like rational motive behavior therapy, which is like just the same as cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah.
And he always said he had this exercise called shame attacking, where we would ask patients to speak for 1 minute and say the positive things about themselves, and nobody could ever get through it. So I did a little shame attacking for you there.
Well, thank you for that awesome intro. And I'm so excited to be here. Yeah, I'm at the end of the day, I am an obesity advocate. I say that, in terms of I care about the science, but at the end of the day, the work that I do is all centered around the human being that's living with obesity and how we can really help them. So all of my experiences and all of my things they're just credentials and their lines. Really, the people that have made all this happen for me really are the patients and the people that I've worked with and educated. It's so important because they've taught me everything. They've taught me what I should research. They taught me, which direction we should move in. So I think that, titles and credentials and all those things are great. And it was so nice of you to say that. But really and truly, I've learned from every human that I've ever worked with.
You learn a lot more by listening than speaking. Somebody told me the other day, they were in a group with me, and she said, that was an unbelievable group. I'm still thinking about it 3 days later. I want to read every book you read, and I want your brain. And I said, no, it's not that complicated. You don't have to read anything. Just listen to your patients. Yeah. And they will teach you everything you need to know. The book science and knowledge is wonderful, and it's very interesting. And it is, if I give a talk on the biochemistry of exercise or whatever, it's always really interesting, but I always end up with a slide showing one of my patients who has transformed their life, and tears come to my eyes. Yeah. So we're on the same exact page with this. So how, so you have this brilliant science mind, but you also have this incredible degree of sensitivity, human sensitivity toward the people who you're helping, and you're motivated to do your research based on how you're going to help them. So the question is, number one, what got you interested in exercise physiology? And then two, how did you become so interested as a behavioral expert? Did you fall down and knock your head and suddenly you not only became a scientist, but you also became a very sensitive human being? And because the person who introduced me to you, Dr. Robin Pashby, who was on the podcast, said, she's very human, Rich. You guys are going to get along really well. And, one of the striking things that I have found is between you and I is we just have a lot of things in common. So how did it happen? How did exercise happen first? And then
I'm a weirdo. I'm not your typical scientist. I think a lot of people, I wasn't the kid that, sat in school and knew that I was going to be, science or medicine or math. That wasn't me. In fact, I was the kid that was thinking about how quickly can you get me out of school? This is crazy. I knew I always loved science. My grandfather was a biology professor in Italy when he came over. So he would always say, you're smart, you get this, you're really good at this. But for me, I was on the track to be a professional dancer. And I actually did dance professionally for many years of my life. I worked in I did commercial work. I toured with some Broadway dance companies, off-Broadway companies. I did a lot of really fun, creative projects. So I was the creative, I was this artsy girl. That's who I was. And then the reality, though, for me, the personal piece of all this for me is I always struggled with my body weight. I was the girl that was very talented and very good at what I did, but many times in my life would be told, hey, you're great, you're our number one, but your body doesn't quite fit the bill. And for many years, I had an unhealthy relationship with exercise, with the way that I ate. I struggled. And as I got older and as I started dancing when I was young, and I started working professionally when I was young as 12. So I had this wonderful spurt. And then as your body changes and things happen and hormones shift, you realize the reality of wow, this is hard. So when it came down to saying, this career is just not maybe for me, I'm going to move on, or I want to do something else, I was lost. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I literally, while I was at Youngstown State, as you mentioned, that was my hometown growing up at this point, I was back home and I was walking through the gymnasium trying to find the gym, of course, because I was going to get on the treadmill and I was going to burn some calories, because that's how you lose weight, is by burning calories. So my relationship with exercise was all about burning calories. wasn't healthy, wasn't something that I love to do. In fact, I genuinely, as an exercise physiologist, people think I'm crazy. I hated it. I hated going. It wasn't dance. I'm a creative person. I wanted to move that way. I don't want to feel like a rat on a treadmill wheel. But I've passed through the Department of Exercise Science. And I stopped and I'm like, what is this? I'm like, well, I exercise. I know something about it. Maybe I'll study that. It's science. I kind of like science. It's exercise. Exercise is kind of like dance. Maybe this will work for me. And as soon as I got into it, I absolutely fell in love with the science of exercise and
Right.
what exercise can do for your body from a medicine standpoint. And then I started to realize, well, maybe there is a connection here with managing your body weight. And what does this mean? And that is kind of how I stumbled on it. But I realized very quickly, wait a minute, this thing is powerful. It's good for our health, our well-being, our metabolism, our metabolic, all these things. It can be medicine. But I hate it. Why don't I like this? What's going on? Why does my body feel good doing this? What's going on? What are these differences? What are these things? So I think that's where the recognition of it's not about perfect exercise prescriptions, even though we know it's really good for our bodies. It's actually understanding the human that's in front of you and what they're going through and why it's not working for them. And then you backpedal into your prescription. So that's where my thoughts and feelings around understanding what works versus does it really work if someone doesn't do it? And that's where my worlds come together.
So you had a deep curiosity about many parts of this. You
Sure.
remind me, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I also have been very interested since the beginning of my career on how to help people move more. And, I knew it was great for you. And I thought naively, all you got to do is show them how, at this time they were just overhead projectors. So I wrote all the benefits of exercise. It was my first group in like 1985 or something. And I thought, I'm just going to walk in there. I'm going to tell them how great it is for them. And they're all going to do it. And no one did.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home.
No one.
No one did. Of course, no one wanted to do that. It was a Prozac study on weight loss and stuff. So I knew I had to come back the next week. And I said, I really thought about this because I wanted to help them. And I said, I don't understand because I'd been a coach. I was an all-American fencer. I was an athlete like you. So I went home and I really thought about it. And I said, there's only one thing to do. Go in there and ask. So I said, what's going on? How come you don't want to do this? Why? What's happened? And they told me. And that started my career, really. And I had all the science like you, but it was listening to them because they have quite a story.
It's a problem, it happens all the time. And I think sometimes the way even exercise professionals are trained, you're trained off of guidelines. It's evidence-based. It's the science. It's a science that I've been a part of.
Yeah.
But we lose that human factor of who's in front of us and not just how they feel about exercise, but what else is going on biologically in their bodies that makes it feel a certain way. What about their environmental context, right? Their access to different things. We've got to think about all of it, the biology, the behavior, the environment, and truly think about in the center of that, who is that person? And that person, like you said, ask. They tell you everything you need to know. You just need to ask.
The person who told me they want to know everything I read, I said, just go in there and ask them. Listen, when people say, sometimes I hear it, they'll say, well, just try to find something you like to do or you'll have fun doing. I say, wait, that's not going to work. We're not going to see any of this as fun. And frankly, if you go out to the park and you watch people jogging, it's not like, woohoo, it's like the greatest fun thing. It's not what this is about. And so that is misguided guidance, so to speak, right? And
so many times, like in talking to folks, they'll say things to me like, well, I don't know. If you've never had a relationship with moving your body in a positive way,
right.
To think that just find something you enjoy. What does that mean? That could be anything. But also, I don't know what I like because I've never done it. Right.
That's right.
And that's okay. I think so many people feel levels of shame or like they should feel like they should know. And the reality is why? That's okay.
Yep.
No, that's okay. Let's talk about what you care about, what you're worried about. Sometimes those kinds of questions or even if you don't know, are the kinds of things like, I've always thought this looked interesting, or I'm intrigued by this, right? And that tells us more about a starting point, and we can do so much with that. That's
Exactly.
that's the information that's going to keep you coming back.
That's right.
Well,
That's
just
right.
out of curiosity, what are some of the things that people say as the reason why they don't do exercise or like exercise?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, that's a really big
It's
question. I
a
will
huge
say,
question.
if you go to the scientific literature, right, you're going to hear like, oh, my major barriers are time, or I don't have self-efficacy or confidence to do it, which I do think holds very, very true. But these big arching themes are that makes sense. But when you really dive down deeper, right, and you really, really talk with folks, you realize that it can be multifaceted. And sometimes it's, a previous experience, a negative experience, or a situation that is framing the way you feel about activity now. That can come across the board for a lot of things related to, weight management care, stigma, shame, blame that you may have felt can really impact, your ability. But I think that the idea of enjoyment does play a role. But if they've had an experience where they felt uncertain about their body in space, or it's felt too intense, or they experienced pain in any way, that kind of resonates out, and it can expand to many people to feel like all activity might be that way, right? Rather than, wait, maybe it was that one thing and we need to tweak it, or we need to change it, or we need to do it. So I think a lot of this sits from, it can be confidence, but previous experience can play a huge role in this relationship, and really helping people to find what's out there for them. And a really good professional, an exercise professional, is going to bring them back into that.
Okay, that's interesting. Rich disappeared on us for a moment. I'm sure he'll be back. So, just going down that theme, I mean, I remember high school and I hated gym. 4 years of gym. There was nothing redeeming about it, like hated it every second. But, like now I bought myself a tonal a bunch of years
Yeah.
ago, and I didn't use it for a while because I hate strength training, just hate it. And I guess it was 2 years ago, I said, I'm just going to use this thing. I'm paying $60 a month for it. I'm going to use it. And after about, I guess, 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks, I realized a couple of quick things. I realized that, what I still hate it, but what I like is the feeling of being uncomfortable.
Uh,
And that uncomfort is what kind of helps you, I guess, grow, right? I mean, it's the same thing professionally. If I'm going after a certification or something like that, that's how I approach it. So I don't know if that's the
no,
right
it's interesting.
mentality or not, but that's how I kind of found it. But it took me 6 or 7 weeks to get there.
Yeah, it's so
So
interesting
I,
because, you talk about, I was actually going to ask you about that because you said the word hate. Hate's a strong word, right? You feel about it. And so if I was working with you, I would ask you that question, is tell me a little bit more. You're framing it as feeling a certain way about that activity, but can you tell me a little bit more about the why behind that? What
yeah,
is it that causes you to feel that way? Because sometimes I think we don't explore that, and sometimes we don't want to. That's okay too, but having that understanding of what it is sometimes can help guide to say, okay, so maybe we could handle it a different way. Or when you do it, like you said it on your own, what is it that makes you feel good or empowered, or what is the positive thing that comes out of this at the end of the day?
right. Yeah, and I did unpack what I hated about it, and it was the fact that when I first started out with strength training, the weights weren't that heavy, and the exercise didn't feel like they were really, moving the needle in any positive
Yeah,
way. And I still probably to this day don't do all of them exactly in the right form, and so all of that combined was like, well, this is a waste of time.
yeah,
And as you keep working on it, you definitely see improvements in strength. You see improvements in form and in quality and how you feel afterwards,
yeah.
in the strength that you're getting out of it. So yeah, I can't say I hate it. I look forward to it now. I mean, the worst day is leg day, and you gotta love leg day, right?
And but for some people they just don't. And I think you're bringing up a really, really important point. And I think in this new age that we're in exciting time with obesity treatment, right? We're hearing so much about workouts that you should do or what you have to do and why this is important for you. And as Rich said already, you know, like the just telling somebody why something's important can bring up thoughts and feelings for people of, well, what do you mean? What now? How do I do this now? You talked about it. I'm not sure. This isn't just about doing something. This is there's 10 exercises or there's 20 exercises. I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. Am I holding my body? It can bring up negative thoughts that spiral very quickly when we don't feel confident or we're not connected to the movement. If it's new, especially when we start exercising, it's that idea of understanding your body in space or awareness, kinesthetic awareness, we call that. And as your body changes, that awareness changes with it. It can or can't. So it's not abnormal to feel that way. And I think sometimes we have to acknowledge that it is a part of the process. But for some people, certain movements and certain activities don't ever feel better. And that's okay too. We've got to let go of those and then we move on to something else. So it's a really fine balance, right? Because you are right. As you start to practice things, your balance and your coordination do improve. That's the amazing thing about the body is the brain and the muscles start to connect, the neuromuscular coordination kicks in. And then all of a sudden you're going, wait, overnight, like what happened to me? It can happen quickly. But then there's other activities where you go, not feeling it, not for me. And I think that's the beautiful thing about exercise is we have the phrase, you know, there's 100 ways to skin the cat, right? You can say it. It's so true with exercise, but sometimes we hear people online or the popular trend, and all of a sudden it turns into a single way of doing something, right? Like you must do this and you have to look like this and you have to be like this. And the reality is that is a load of crap. We can do so much better. This is an individualized space. So I always say to people, never feel guilty about not liking an activity. It's not you. The activity isn't serving you.
Right.
Activity is supposed to help you. You aren't supposed to give into the
Right.
activity. That's the rule.
I disappeared. Did you realize that? I was booted out.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
did.
But you seem to keep the
Yeah,
conversation
and
going.
we took that time to talk about
That's great.
exercise.
I had made a note before I did get booted out. Two things. First, you mentioned the term self-efficacy, and you said it real quick. And I think
Yeah.
probably most people don't really know what that means, but it's critical here. So can you just explain briefly what is self-efficacy and why is it so important to have self-efficacy for exercise? And that doesn't mean like it. It's different. What is it?
How confident do you feel is the best way? And I say, you feel as an individual speaking to anyone that might be listening, thinking it from that that context, essentially. So it's not about me telling you it's important and you trying it out, right? It's about you feeling comfortable, confident doing something. So it's similar to a little bit of what we were just briefly talking about, but going back a step and thinking about it from, it can be confident in how you look in the environment that you're exercising in. It can be confidence with the particular activities or movements that you're doing as a part of the exercise. It can be, you know, there's a lot of layers to it that can come into play, but it's you feeling really good and safe as well in the space that you're exercising and doing those particular movements. And that's really important because I think sometimes people, to your point earlier, is, well, if I just teach you the movement, it'll be fine.
Right.
It's deeper than that, right? It's lots of deeper layers.
My experience is, we were talking earlier before I got booted out, that, telling somebody, find something you like, or if that's fun. I think, I am certain they internalize that as there must be something wrong with me because I don't like this and everybody else does. But first of all, that is not true. And it's not what it's about. And it may not, I think Richard Simmons, frankly, did more for more people than almost anybody in this whole arena. But I often will say, I use the term, it's not necessarily Richard Simmons' happy time where you're watching that video and everybody's bouncing around, laughing and having a good time. But I think people internalize it, just like they've internalized the bias and the stigma against having the chronic disease of obesity. It's like they believe it, right? And they think there's got to be something wrong with me if I can't find. So that message of just go find something you like doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think that's what.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It really, it's deeper
Yep.
for sure.
And you and I, when we first spoke before the podcast, we had talked about the shoulds and the supposed tos, if you recall. And I told you, Dr. Ellis, he would say you're shoulding all over the place. But it was like a demandingness. It was like, I'm supposed to, I have to. And the moment people start to fall into that trap, and like you were saying, the guidelines. Well, guidelines,
Mhm.
I mean, you could question guidelines till the end of it. I mean, it's a certain sample of the population they measured. And, so 40 minutes is good. Well, yeah, but they measured it at 40 minutes. What about at 10 minutes? What is this? Like all these confounders that don't help. Like I almost never would show the physical activity guidelines, not in the beginning anyway, because, the moment someone says, how much should I do? I'm in trouble or they're in trouble because then because then they internalize as they're no good. And if they don't do it, then their self-efficacy, like you just described, drops. And self-efficacy is about the best predictor of behavior change. So building your self-efficacy,
Absolutely.
building it means succeeding, which means setting goals that you could do and not having the expectations like you're describing. That's terrific.
You're right on point.
Yeah. No.
Is the guideline the 150 minutes of exercise a week?
Well, I'm going to
So
go ahead.
the general public health. Yeah. So the general public health guidelines do say 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a week. And that's scrutinized a lot of times. A lot of their data is based on aerobic exercise that's been done. They've now added 2 days per week of resistance training on top of that. And oh, by the way, you're supposed to be doing restorative time. And oh, by the way, you're doing flexibility training for just any person. Let's take weight management, obesity treatment out of it. You sit there and you go, okay, I got to figure out 150 minutes of this, and then oh, by the way, 2 more days of this, and oh, by the way, I gotta stretch, and I gotta, oh my goodness, the should start to come up. These are all the things that I should do, to make this great point, and it just gets off base. Now, again, there's other guidelines that have been put in place for weight management under certain scenarios that expand that even more. The same problems, things exist with those while they're guides. But end of the day, guidelines, it's funny. I always laugh, and I always say this when I educate exercise professionals on this concept is guidelines, listen to their name. They tell you the answer. They're a guide. They're not the end all be all. And we don't say that enough. We don't say that to professionals enough. We don't say that to our patients that are learning and exploring with exercise. They're a guide, something maybe to look towards that the average population has benefited from. But guess what? You're you. And we're going to figure out the pathway for you, not the guide. There's no guide. This is a day by day, listen to your body, understand what you feel comfortable with and how you're feeling during that movement. And then based upon how you feel, we're going to build from there.
Yeah.
And that's no guidelines can do that.
When I run a weight loss program and we have weekly groups, and I go in and I will talk about exercise, and it is palpable in the room. They are prepared, braced for me to tell them they're going to have to start training for the marathon. And I completely pull the rug out from underneath them by doing none of that. Right. And we just talk about like, what's been your experience? What's been good, what hasn't. Here's your time. I'm going to give you 30 minutes. Bitch and moan all you like about your experience. You had mentioned in one of your papers, and I measured this, studied this, like your experience in physical education as a kid. We are so unenlightened. It's beyond belief. Like picking people last for a gym class, a team, or climbing that rope. Like what percent below 0.01% can climb the rope to the top? I'm sure if you went back to my high school, my name is probably up at the top, but that on the ceiling, because I could climb the rope, but who could? Nobody. And I was so interested in this. I did a lot of research in this. And every time I did a talk, I got permission to survey the people, the attendees. And I would ask them, what was your experience like in physical education? And would you consider yourself an athlete? And would you consider that you were good at phys ed? And it turns out every single time you had to be good at it to have fun. And so where are we? The first opportunity that it's not going to be mandatory, you're out the door. and then we lose that, and it
Yep.
tracks strongly into adulthood, that kind of trauma. So yeah.
Oh yeah, it very much does. And I can say that to a person I've worked with. And it's not to say, and I want to be clear, I've worked with people that were athletes and super
Right.
fit, and our biology and the biology of our weight and things, our lives change and things happen. We know that. I'm sure you've spoken about that extensively. We can't always predict for who, for when. And some of those people, it's different for them, right? They want to be able to do what they used to be able to do, and they're frustrated because they can't anymore. So what they used to love isn't something that they love
Right.
anymore. Many people probably have experienced that. But then the flip side to your point is, I have had many, 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 many folks that I've worked with that can tell me the moment, the color of the shirt that they were wearing, what the gymnasium
Yep.
temperature was, how it smelled in the area when they were doing that fitness test or weren't picked for a
Yeah.
team. And it
It matters
matters.
a lot.
Previous experience, context matter. And you're not, it's okay for anybody that's listening to, it's okay if that was you, if you did feel that way. We get it. We understand. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I had a terrible experience before and I want this one to be different.
I really strongly emphasize that. We spend our first session doing just that because we have to undo the damage, because we can't change that. There's some catharsis. Exactly right. I often say the best walking plan I've ever heard of is 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back. Walk out for 5, turn around, come back, you're done. And be done with it. And I'm like, really? It's like, it's something like that. Okay.
That's right.
All right. I think we got the point across. I think the summary is that we need to be sensitive to where the person is at, what they can and what they can't do, their limitations. Leave out the shoulds, the supposed tos, support them, let them know you understand.
Yeah.
And get them to trust you so that you can and help them.
Remembering that you know your body pretty well. Even though you might not be comfortable with the exercise, even though you might not see yourself as an exercise person or an athlete, that's okay. But you still do. You know your body. You know what doesn't feel right. You know when you need more support. So don't be afraid to trust your body. You know more than you think about that amazing thing that holds you up every day.
I say to the group, I go, every one of you, all you women and all you men, you all have the same number of bones. You have the same muscles. They're all there. We can help you connect to them in a painless way that won't feel like what it used to. We call it state-dependent memory, where if I give a message that sounds like what your gym teacher did, you're going to recall those awful experiences immediately. All right. So let's switch to a little more.
But you are saying that.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. You are saying that, exercise is important, and it is a daily or almost a daily activity, but you just have to find the things that you want to do and do those.
Yeah, I think that, at the end of the day, I like to frame it as exercise should serve you in a way that helps you feel and function your best every day. It's not about the shoulds, right? So how is the activities that you're choosing to do make you feel better every day, make you function better? Maybe it's how it makes you cognitively feel better. Maybe it's at 3 o'clock when you're at work and you're finding that slump at your desk and you take that 5 minutes out, 5 minutes back walk that Rich mentioned, and all of a sudden you're awake. That's relevant. That's helped you feel better, and you're probably going to function better for the second half of your day, right? That's activity serving you, not you feeling like I got to fit into a mold of activity. So it's really flipping the way that we think and talk about it. It's not about what plan should I do. It's about what movements are going to make me be a better version, fixing yourself. But just feeling your best self.
We were talking about the guidelines earlier, and we were talking.
Sorry, Rich, I got to follow up on
Alex.
that one.
Go ahead.
So my whole goal of, working on the strength training machine and running, I run about 30 miles a week. I walk about 30 miles a week. And then I got the strength training, which is 5-6 days a week. My whole goal there is to get into good enough shape that I can eat more, because I like to eat. So that's how, in my mind, exercise is going to eventually serve me. I'm not quite there yet, because I don't think I need 3,000 calories yet to maintain, my bulk, but
So you're looking
that's
at
the
it from
goal. Am I on the wrong path?
you're looking at it from an outcome base, right? You do have a motivator, right? Your motivator is that ability to potentially be able to be more flexible with what you do from an intake standpoint. And there is some evidence to support that that really can be where exercise is your friend. It gives you that flexibility. It's not the primary driver of weight loss, but it can be your friend in terms of giving you the widening your energy gap, we like to say, widening the amount of calories you may be able to take in. The trick though is what you're saying is you're talking about a lot of activity in order to be able to do that, right? And it's really getting down to those relevant drivers, motivators for you, right? If that's relevant and that's important for you, then that's something that can be focused on. Now, with honesty, right? Saying that you got to do a lot of work and you may not get to that point of gaining all that muscle where you get to those calories. Rich and I could talk about the bioenergetics of that all day. That's a whole nother hour to get into all of those.
That would be a great
right?
follow-up to this podcast because I am
Yeah.
interested
We
in
can do
that.
it.
Yeah, no, but at the same time, somebody else is, somebody else comes into the picture, and for them, it's not about like having that flexibility or getting to that metabolic space. For them, it's about, I just want to be able to bend down and pick up my grandkid and stand back up
Yep.
and
Yep.
do that and do that on a regular basis. So at the end of the day, those two humans, you're not different from that other human I just described. We're just tapping into something that's different about the way you want to feel and function every day. You want to feel and function in that light. Someone else wants to be able to pick up their kid. Those are the key pieces of what we need to target and find exercise that serves those goals for you.
I'm going to skip way ahead for a moment, then we're going to go backward. But the Dr. Maria Fred-Turon did a study back, and I spoke to you about this back in 1994, where she went into a nursing home up in Boston area, and she had 100 elderly folks. The average age was 88 or 87, and she had them do leg extension. Just sit in the chair and you lift your leg, right? For, I think it was 12 weeks or 16 weeks, something like that. Anyway, their strength improved 113%. And we're going to talk a little bit about why it did in a moment. But I want to read one comment from one of the participants, which speaks directly to what you're describing. And she said, and this is a 91-year-old woman who was in that study. And, at the nursing home, what do they do there? The moment that you're in the nursing home, somebody gets everything for you. Like, instead of them helping you move more, so she says it's very beneficial for me. Things that I couldn't do when I came here to the nursing home, I can do now. I didn't think that I was going to live anymore, but I feel different now. And to me, I mean, I could speak about the biochemistry of exercise all day, but that statement is the most important part of it, right?
Absolutely.
And it's
the feel and function. It's right on it.
It's just
it's function. And she feels empowered by that. So she started moving more, and that helped with her function. Yep. From there, that changed the way she feels. And that's that circle of it. And it's different for other people. Some people do exercise and they instantly feel better. And then down the line, they feel the functional benefits. Yep. Other people, they start to function better, and it changes the way that they feel. There's no direct path.
Right. It moves like this. It's not congruent. It's not linear like that.
And then you try something new that feels terrible, and it almost feels like you step back, even though you're taking it to the next level. It's a part of the dance. It's absolutely a part of the dance. And maybe that's why I like it, because of my background in dance, that little bit of a challenge, right?
I agree. Okay. And one last thing I wanted to just mention very quickly. We talked about the guidelines, because the new guidelines, physical activity guidelines from 2018, their conclusion is move more and sit less. You've got this gigantic document of hundreds of papers of science and everything. And the final conclusion of all the scientists is move more and sit less.
So, here's what's interesting about that. And I know many of the people that were on
I'm sure you do.
Those guidelines, including my very good colleague, John Jakisik, who literally is down the hall from me, obesity exercise expert who was my mentor, and I still get to work with him
Right.
today. But he says this all the time. And I think this is really important for, anyone that's listening to this and this happens a lot, especially with federal guidelines or consensus statements and positions. So there's a team of scientists that go through all these articles and then they write beautiful papers that are published in peer-reviewed journals. And then those findings get taken by some science communicators often, and they pare them down to very simplistic public health messages like move more and sit less. And when you read the guidelines carefully, the scientific research, you actually see that it's much more nuanced than that. They don't talk about how it's probably maybe shorter bouts, but still 10-minute bouts are important, or it's not just about every minute counts. And so these messages get twisted. So I always like to say to, people that are practicing, that are out there, that are taking these, read deeper, go deeper. Read the bigger statements. But from a public health perspective, I don't mind move more and sit less, for the standpoint of the reality is we aren't moving enough as a society. Yeah. So the idea, the public health message of move more is a positive motivator. And I think from a human standpoint, if we walk into each day saying, how can I move a little more today? Or how can I move more than I anticipated? Because let's face it, I've had a day today. I can be honest. I'm not, just because I'm the exercise physiologist, you heard how I started this conversation, right? I have sat all day long. I'm still sitting here while I'm talking to you today. But for me, I need to pause right now and say, oh, today's not a wash. But I can pause at this time of night today and say, well, how can I move a little more?
Yep.
I've just done something wonderful for my body. It's not perfect. It's not a big bout. It's not anything crazy, right? I just moved more though. I think, and if you could just 5 minutes right now, you just did something amazing for your body.
I think we were born in the same hospital room. I think I think the DNA just remained there, and we caught the same thing, because this is exactly the same thing I say. You like, it's like you sound.
I feel like Alex is looking at us and going, oh no, I don't know what just is happening right now. I'm seeing this.
I get it.
It's like, I say, look, just scan your universe. I mean, I have pictures that I show. Everybody's got those pictures, right? But I have pictures in New York City, where I live, of people waiting for the bus. 19 minutes they're waiting for the bus. That's going to take them 1 or 2 blocks. And I said, could you make a different decision at this moment? And up to you. It's not, just think about it. Like, use some common sense. What makes sense, right? And what could help you?
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that sometimes we get so discouraged we talk about time as being a barrier. Yeah. That's an interesting way of working in activity when time is a barrier for you, right? But I do think that, especially in the day and age of wearable technology, and I've done work and I've done validation work. I've had studies where I've used wearable technology, and we still use them sometimes for tracking in our studies. But I think sometimes we all can look down at that wearable and go, I'm too far gone. The day's over, things happened, and it can send us in the wrong direction when we're so hyper focused on a number, or we're so hyper focused or doing a thing. So that idea of every minute counts that comes out of the guidelines, or, just move some more today, you're never too far gone in a day. There's always a small bout or bit you can do. And you know what? The flip side though is when your body says, not today, I'm not feeling it. I need to restore. I need to take a break. I'm sore from a previous workout. Listen to your body, because if you take that time and you respect that body that you have, you're going to be more likely the next day to do it. But if you feel like you're pounding, I'm going to get it done, it's going to get over with. If you're having those negative thoughts, sometimes pausing and saying to yourself, it's okay. It's all right. But tomorrow, I'm going to move a little more.
I think the underlying message there is some self-compassion. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
good. I love the phrase. Give yourself grace.
Yeah. Not judge yourself, not be. Listen. You've been judged enough, and not Alex. He doesn't go for that. Look at him.
I mean, I have a problem with that. And the problem with that is, you could cuddle yourself and you could basically say, well, it's not comfortable for me to go and walk a mile or whatever it is. I'd just rather sit here and eat a pound of ice cream or a gallon of ice cream. And so, I mean, I think if you think you're precious, then that's what you're going to do. And you're not going to do the walk. You need a little bit of toughness to
So let me
say,
tell you
you
the
know,
second
get up
half.
at 3:30 in the morning. Don't complain about the fact that you don't have time, and go get it done. That's what I do. I get up at 2:40, 3:15. I'm out the door. I get 6 miles in before 6 o'clock in the morning, so it can be
So
done.
what I like to say is give yourself grace, second half. Move at your pace. Your pace is 3:30 in the morning. Your pace is I know how to get it done. This works for me. That single mother that has working 2 jobs, that has kids,
True.
and doing things. It's different, right? So each human needs to figure out what their pace is. And when I say pace, move at your pace. It's about how do you move at your pace that serves you so you feel and function your
Right.
best. So grace needs to be matched with
There
pace.
you go. Nicely said.
Okay, I buy that.
My God, I can
Okay.
never get him to agree to anything I say. And here you are, you just did it. I'm so glad. And Dr. Pashby
Well,
did
you
the
know what?
same.
And it's
What?
And you know what? It's good. It's good to disagree on things because I think as we talk to people about exercise, if we must remember that each human's different. Everybody's circumstances, the biology, the behavior, and the environment, they're all different. And what works for one person doesn't work for another, and that's
Yep.
okay. That's we can do this. We can make a difference, and we can find that pattern and path for each
Right.
person.
All right. So
Doesn't have to look like anybody else.
I would feel remiss if we didn't touch on the science for a few moments because we're getting short.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears for a few moments because, you're a scientist as well. We need to tap into that just a little bit. So what I'd like to maybe
Sure.
just sort of not wrap up, but head in is the issue of muscle, which is something you study, just heard
Yeah.
all the reasons that are everything Dr. Rogers just said is the biobehavioral part of this whole thing. But this is a woman who also does biopsies and looks at labs and blood tests and things like that and looks at muscles and so forth. So I'd like to touch on that part of her brain for a minute. The first thing
Yeah. No.
what's that?
I said, no,
Okay, good.
absolutely. Let's
All right, good.
go.
So if we're going to talk about weight loss, could you just describe for everybody, because we're going to throw these terms around and nobody's going to know what we're saying. Just describe briefly lean mass, skeletal mass, muscle, all the things that we lose when we lose weight and when we gain weight. Make it clear for people so they understand, because we're talking like about the GLP-1s, the new meds, and everybody's so concerned about all the, they'll just say it, all the muscle mass you lose. But that's not really hitting the point correctly. So would you mind just sort of, first of all, just letting us know what happens when you lose weight, what do you lose, and when you gain weight, what do you gain?
Yeah. So let's just really quickly delineate body composition. So if we break the body into fat mass and fat-free mass, 2 compartments, this is the basic model of body composition. Fat mass, easy. We all got that. How much fat or adipose tissue we have in our body. Let's put that one aside for a second. We know that in the perfect world, when we lose weight, wouldn't it be great if we just lost that? That's not really what happens, okay? The other component is our fat-free mass, okay? It's everything else in your body. And often what people like to do is think, okay, well, that's the muscle, right? You got your fat and you got your muscle. No, there's a lot more in that component. We've got bone, which is itself. And then we take that fat-free component, we break it up into bone, and we break it up into lean tissue then from there. So bone is hard, the rest is lean. Okay, so let's take bone and let's put bone aside for a second. Now we've got this lean tissue compartment. Lean tissue compartment is made of a lot of things. Big one is water, right? That can be upwards of 30% of your body can be made up of water. That's also your organ tissue. That's also your connective tissue, what connects your organs and your muscles to your bones, all those things. And about 50% of that compartment's actually muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass, or cardiac mass, or other smooth muscle mass, all falls into that category. So I think people forget your body's made up of a lot of stuff. Now, when we lose weight, yes, we lose fat mass. That's a positive thing. That's what we're going for. But we naturally lose some of that lean tissue that's in the body as well. So we're going to lose some of that is going to be skeletal muscle mass. Some of that may be ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, those kinds of things. And there is a chance that you could be losing some bone as well. It is natural. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people lose sight of. As your body is shifting, you're losing weight, and your body size in general becomes smaller, meaning you've lost fat or adipose tissue. You naturally lose some lean tissue at the same time, because that lean tissue is not necessarily needed, especially the supportive lean tissue. Because your body size is smaller, you naturally lose some lean tissue. When your body size goes up and you gain weight, you gain lean tissue. Once you lose it, you lose lean tissue. So some lean tissue loss is to be expected with weight loss.
But
We
is
want to
it?
make sure too much of that isn't muscle, though. I will say that, but some is to be expected.
But I mean, the
Um,
ultimate goal is to preserve the muscle while losing fat. Because I mean, I guess if you don't exercise, and I know some people that were taking the GLPs and just basically relied on them for what they are. No exercise, nothing
Sure,
else changes. But
sure.
I mean, don't you lose both muscle and fat? And so really you're not losing weight. From a fat percentage, you're probably still, in a similar percentage. You just
No, you
became
definitely
smaller
do.
overall.
Yeah, so that's where your relative versus your absolute is really what you're talking about. So absolute, like if we would measure this many pounds is fat, this many pounds is muscle, this many pounds is water in your body, and delineate it that way, you would see those numbers, those numbers basically as the body changes, right? You'd see the absolute numbers, the poundage go down. You absolutely see that. You're talking about relative. So relative to your current body size or relative to your current body weight, those percentages will change. And actually it's all about, it's a numbers game. Let's call it what it is. But you're exactly right. As you start to lose fat mass, we will see though that percentage of fat in the body compartment can change, but you will technically still see many times what appears that lean compartment almost can stay the same. And that's okay. That's to be expected because those ratios are shifting as you're losing weight. But you're right in terms of talking about it. And I think the word that you used was preserve. And that's a really important word for us to pause and talk about, because the media says it, we all hear it, it's across the board. And we've known this from studies for decades in all forms of weight loss. We've seen this in metabolic bariatric surgery. We've seen this in very low calorie diet studies. When you lose weight on these, even if you're resistance training, even if you're doing aerobic training, and I'm talking high volume, you're really doing it, we're supervised exercise studies, we see that patients still lose lean tissue. And they're still losing some of that muscle mass because their body just doesn't need all of it. And it may not be metabolically healthy tissue. Your body's getting rid of what it doesn't need. But what's amazing is that for those patients that do exercise, they still get stronger and they have better fitness levels. Their muscle health in general is better. So it comes down to, you can exercise, and we know you can do high volumes of exercise. You don't always preserve all of your tissue because sometimes you just don't need it. And that's something we don't talk enough about.
Right. And I wanted to touch on that because I think, when we were talking, it was one of the main things that kept resonating in my head was your points about the metabolic health of your muscle being almost more important than that word preserve. This,
Yeah.
and when you're saying, we're talking about skeletal muscle right now.
Yeah.
So say more about that, because that resonated with me the most out of all the things we talked about. And I understand it completely, but if you could explain for folks what you mean by the metabolic health of our skeletal muscle. Let's just talk skeletal muscle for the moment.
Yeah.
The
For sure.
metabolic health of that, and why it's so important to keep the metabolic health, even if the skeletal muscle, even by percent overall,
Yeah.
decreases. Tell us what you're studying, because this is what you're studying, metabolic health.
Yeah, it's looking at the combination, and it's both, right? We know that if you lose too much, that can be a bad thing too. I don't want to dance around that. That's real. That is a real thing. Sarcopenia, people have heard that term used. But we also know that despite that,
Excuse me for 1 second. I'm sorry. Hold on. You have to explain what
oh yeah,
sarcopenia is.
sarcopenia. So sarcopenia is a combination, and this is why this matters. I'm glad you paused me on that. A combination of losing that muscle tissue, okay, and having a reduction in strength and function of that tissue. And this is
Right.
why metabolic health matters, is the strength and function part of it. How
Right.
your muscles serve you every day is what we want to think about, right? So we want to try to avoid getting to that state. Is what we never want to do, is we never want to lose tissue and get weaker or have that health of that tissue not function as well. So the analogy that I like to give when I talk about muscle, skeletal muscle, is it's your metabolic engine. And I like to use an engine in my analogy. Is we're going to talk about a hybrid engine in a car versus a rusty old clogged engine for a second. If you've got a hybrid engine, right? Hybrid engine means it switches between electric and it switches between gas, right? That's exactly what your muscles can do. They are switching their fuel sources. They are creating and building energy and helping you to contract and connect your body and hold your body up. And they're metabolically active. We forget that our muscles aren't just there to hold us up or bulk up and make us look good, right? They are there because they're an endocrine organ. They're giving off positive myokines, which are sending positive signals throughout the body. They're controlling our blood sugar levels. They do all these amazing things for us. So when we have a hybrid engine or healthy muscle tissue, it's switching fuel sources. It's doing all these wonderful things for us easily. Now, if we aren't taking care of the health of our engine, if we're not doing regular tune-ups and maintenance, which is your exercise, we'll think of it that way, that engine gets clogged, it starts to get rusty, it starts to become inefficient, and what do we start doing? We start blowing off lots of exhaust. That exhaust is inflammation. That exhaust is we're no longer taking in that blood sugar, that glucose, and we're no longer functioning well. So it starts to build up in our bloodstream. Now, that muscle tissue is actually making you feel worse, not feel better. It's not helping you function. It's not helping that your car drive down the road anymore. It's causing problems rather than that hybrid engine that's switching between fuel sources as it needs to, going smooth and strong, doing what it needs to do. That's the difference between the healthy versus the unhealthy tissue. And your exercise is your tune up and your oil change and all the things that you need to do to keep that muscle tissue smooth sailing.
Good. That perfect. A plus. That was terrific.
It's my favorite analogy. It's my favorite analogy.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one. Let me ask you this. So there is evidence we lose whole body protein as we get older. We're doing an aging workshop right now, and we just finished, and it was well received. And in fact, I decided I'm not just going to show them how to do balance exercises. I'm going to give them the molecular aspects of aging in the simplest way possible so they understand it. And when it came down to, we were talking about oxidation, I said, here, just think of it like this. Remember when Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz gave the Tin Man some oil when he rusted? There you go. Think of oxidation like that. And that's all you got to think about. Your body's rusting as you get older. And if you move, it lubricates it. You know, you were talking about myokines, which are messengers from the muscle and helping you, all of that. So I think we're on the same page with that. How important is it to you that we are losing protein, and the data is pretty clear, we're losing type 2 fibers as well as we get older, if you do agree with that? And if you do, if you could explain what a type 2 fiber is and if you think it's important that that's happening as we get older. I would like to hear your take on it.
I mean, you know, it goes back to muscle, you know, and this goes back to
skeletal muscle.
Skeletal muscle. This goes back to how the muscle, that skeletal muscle responds. Think of it that way. How does that skeletal muscle respond for you on a daily basis? So this is how is it helping you function on a daily basis? So the dynamics of reacting quickly, right? Your ability to react quickly versus not. So you mentioned type 2 muscle fibers. Type 2 muscle fibers, we like to call them our fast twitch fibers. They contract quickly, they respond quickly, they're dynamic, and that's important, right? As we age, when we think about fall risk, when we think about losing our balance, how quickly can we react, twist, change our posture to help us in that position? That's a lot of that. And that can be really, really important. Again, keeping us on our feet and functioning at our very best every day. On the flip side of that are other kinds of muscle fibers, our type 1 muscle fibers. We call those slow twitch fibers because those are they can last a long time, right? They don't move, they don't react fast, so they don't use as much energy. They're meant to sustain activity for a longer period of time. Those are important too. We don't lose those quite as fast, but those are important for stamina, being able to hold ourselves up for long periods of time, without fatiguing out, but also how our posture, our mobility, all those things kind of roll together. So it's all important. It's all a combination of our muscle health. And even though we lose them, there's wonderful evidence that we can take what we have and maximize it still. And I think that's an important message for anyone, whether we're all aging. We're all aging by the moment, unfortunately. We don't like to think that way, but it's the truth. We're aging at 20. Right? We're aging at 30, we're aging at 40. And so wherever you are in your life, in your journey, it's always remembering there's no such thing as too far gone. You're not too far gone in a day, like we talked about before in terms of moving, but you're not too far gone at any point in your life in terms of improving what you have, improving the skeletal muscle that you have. And that to me is, I think it's inspiring, and we don't talk about it enough. All we hear about is what we're losing. We're not talking about what potential we still have to improve the health of that muscle, to get the tune up on the engine.
Yep. So I have two questions for you related to this. One is, people listening to this, how are they supposed to interpret what you just said about that you can still function, and what do they walk away thinking, well, what is going to help me with my metabolic health, metabolic skeletal health, skeletal muscle health? What do I walk away thinking?
Yeah. So it starts with moving more. General, right? We start by moving more. So whatever you're doing now, let's start a little bit more. And I want to be careful. There's a lot of words out there that say that, unless you're doing the shoulds, unless you're resistance training, you're not changing your muscle health, your skeletal muscle health. Absolutely not true. In fact, different forms of activity do different things for your muscles. And most of the time, unless we're doing very pure training, like very pure on an exercise machine, doing reps and sets with structured rest breaks, right? Very pure training. We're doing some crossover of aerobic and resistance training, or stressing those muscles, right? So the way I like to look at it is, if you're really looking for just a simple way of thinking about this, is getting up and moving more. And, every now and then just trying to challenge a little bit of that pace, trying to push yourself a little bit further in terms of that stride. You're going to start to get some aerobic benefits, which are going to benefit, those muscles, as I was saying, utilize fuel and how efficient they are, and how much energy you have. That's the big crux of that part of it. From the resistance training side, if you don't have fancy weights or bands or those things even to start, it's talking about putting a little bit more load on those muscles. So how can you, I don't want to say strain or stress those muscles, but make those muscles work harder than they typically do? By doing that, you're adding that little extra bit of load that your muscles have to work through. And by doing that, you're constantly having those muscles work and push a little bit harder. And that's going to start to stimulate very mechanical and brain muscle connections that help you balance and coordinate better. So there's benefits for all of it.
Great. And I want to make sure that we get to this point. I think people need to understand this, particularly as the population gets older. And as you rightfully say, none of us are getting younger. And so the quote I read to you earlier from the woman in the study, and in Dr. Fiatron's study, they found a 113% increase in strength. Now, these are 89-year-old people. They did not get bulky muscle, right? So could you talk for a moment about the role of the central nervous system in this whole area that I would like people to take away from this, knowing that it is never too late to increase the metabolic health and so forth through different pathways, not
Yeah.
just the mechanical. So if you could talk for a moment, how did they get 113% stronger in 12 weeks? Like, what is going on? And that motor discharge rate, if you could
Yeah.
explain that to the folks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that, one way to think about it is understanding that anytime we start moving or start a new movement pattern, anytime there's a new movement pattern. So this is where that we talked about self-efficacy and being unsure about a movement, certain movements that you do, that can be really positive and in ways outside of, and sometimes this is an important thing to remind yourself in that challenge, because anytime you start a new movement pattern, you're having to make a new connection between your brain and your muscles to do that movement pattern. And that is a great cognitive challenge for us, which is a really good thing, but it's also a very good physical challenge. And the more that we repeat that movement pattern over and over and over again, what we happen is the connection between the brain telling the muscles to move. We've got neurons in between there. Those are our
Good.
electrical signals that stimulate that muscle. And every time that we do that pattern, those neurons fire and they start to fire more. And the more that they fire over and over again, the more muscle fibers contract, the more we recruit, we like to say, muscle fibers. So we use more of our muscle. The more of our muscle we use, the stronger we start to get over time. So that's why repetition and practicing things and doing them over and over again is something that we do. Even like you think in sports, how many times you practice skills before you actually do them. It's so good for our brains, but it helps our brains send signals to our muscles. Then the muscles start to work even better and that engine becomes even more efficient over time.
Great. That's what I wanted people to hear, because we need to let people know you don't have to be, a big muscly person.
No.
And you use the word neuron, which I like, which is sort of it's like it's like an electrical wire coming from your brain to your muscles that are telling the muscle to move and do something. And if you awaken those patterns, which is, I know what you're saying, then that's what it takes. And that's why it doesn't matter. Yeah.
And I think that 113% is important to note that, these are very older adults. They fall into that category, right? So there's likely over years, there's been some loss of tissue. If they hadn't been active before, they improved. And sometimes when we're in a deficit, when we're in a state where we haven't been active, we can see a bigger benefit. So that could be a little bit of, this difference. But what's important about that is the reminder that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how long it's been since you've exercised. It doesn't matter if you've never done it before. It's never too late. That's a huge benefit, and it can happen in your 90s.
All right. I got a couple of quick questions. So first of all, protein. Everybody's obsessed with protein right now. And how much do we really need? And the second question is creatine. Is that worthwhile? I mean, I take creatine. I have no idea if it's doing anything for me or not. And from a protein perspective, I'm vegan, of course, have to be. So I probably get, 90 to maybe 120 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll say it from this standpoint, and I am a firm believer of comprehensive care, and I don't want to cross out of my scope of practice when I say this. So I don't do individualized protein recommendations. And I think it's really important that if you're very concerned about protein or you are training for something specific, you're in exercise, doing something or certain things, one of the best things that you can do is sit down and meet with a registered dietitian, someone that's going to tailor for you, because I think we put a lot of general blanket recommendations out there. People may be taking in too much protein right now. But what I will say from the exercise perspective, and one thing that we do know is, unless you are someone that is significantly protein deficient, you are someone that may be older with sarcopenia that we talked about before with tissue loss, protein by itself isn't likely going to build more tissue. It takes protein plus stimulus, muscle contraction, exercise to actually make a difference. If you're concerned about mass slowing muscle loss potentially, which we don't have a lot of data to support, but it could be a contributing factor. If you're someone trying to build tissue that's not in a weight loss phase, yes, you would need to be not only taking in protein, but stimulating the muscle together. The combination is what matters. That's the big thing.
Okay.
Creatine, oh my goodness, talk about that again for hours, but we won't go there deeply today. But creatine is something that's being highly studied. We've known for decades that it can have muscle benefits. I think it's not necessarily something, though, that blanketly everyone should likely be taking. I know you might be hearing that on social media in different places right now. We need to get a little bit more evidence before it becomes a everybody should be taking creatine kind of thing.
Okay. So we are getting to 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I think we could go on for hours, and
Yeah, we
you're
can.
coming back. I'm coming to Kansas. I'm going to get you if you don't decide to come back. So you just keep looking over your shoulder. But two last points. The first is in your research right now, what can we expect? Or what would you like, I guess, maybe, or on your wish list? What would you like your immediate research to show us? What are you looking at? What can we expect from the lab?
We are doing some very exciting projects. We're actually one of the first large scale randomized clinical trials that's going to be looking at these new GLP-1 medications. And specifically, we're really looking at high levels of body compositional changes. So we're looking at the quantity of what people are losing, but we're also looking at the quality of the tissue, what happens with and without exercise. So we can really measure what's happening to the muscle, skeletal muscle, what's happening to our fitness, what's happening to our strength, what's happening to our function. So hopefully I will be able to clear up some of the information that's out there that, may be scaring people around their muscle tissue or their muscle health or all of these things that we've been talking about today, and really be able to bring some new, I don't want to say guidelines, but I'll say it, some new recommendations forward to maybe help put some people at ease for what they may or may not need to do when they're taking these highly, highly effective and promising medications for obesity treatment.
Well, I can say for myself and speak for the rest of the world, we're waiting for your research because it's very, very important work. And it's really, you have found the absolutely correct research question. Because those studies have not been done, and they need to be done because we're in the infancy of this thing. I mean, we have many more questions than answers at this point, and we're doing the best we can with what we got, but we need much more. So, so congratulations to you on all of your research. So well, actually, we have two questions that we always ask. But the first one is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners that we haven't covered right now, something burning that you really want to let people know about? Is there something we missed? We could go on for hours, but is there anything you want to is there anything you'd like to leave people with?
I always, I'll work from an advocacy standpoint because in every human that I work with that may be living with obesity or struggling to manage their body weight, I always say that when it comes to your relationship with physical activity and exercise, while it may feel like a foreign space sometimes for you, remember, you know your body. And I said this before, you do know your body well. But advocate for yourself in a sense of if you do go to a space where you're working with a fitness professional or a trainer and somebody tells you that they have the perfect method that works for you, that's going to do X, Y, and Z, you should not walk. Even if you don't like it, run out the door, because I will say to you wholeheartedly that you are an individual person and exercise or physical activity needs to be individualized for you. Don't fall into canned methods. Fall into someone that wants to work with you and prescribe exercise specifically for you. They're out there. They want to help you. Don't fall for that other stuff.
Perfect. Okay, so here's the last question. What are you having for dinner?
Oh, what a good question. So I have been doing, and this is me with my time management lately. It's a very busy time of the year for me. So I've been doing factor meals lately. I don't know if anybody's heard about these, but they are pre-portioned meals that help me kind of keep my calories in line. So after I've had a crazy, stressful, sedentary day like I have today, I don't go home and overindulge maybe on something if I'm too lazy to cook. So they're keeping me in line. So tonight I am having, I believe, fish barramundi. So I'm looking forward to it.
And are you hungry right now?
I'm not.
Okay.
It's probably because I'm engaged in a good conversation. So I'm focused on that.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's a big distraction to have this sort of excitement. Yeah, no. So listen, This is extraordinary, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to have you be part of our podcast series because, the whole mission here is to dispel all the misinformation and give people the proper information based on evidence and expertise and experience. And I think one of the things that you and I do have in common is we've both done research and we both have been clinicians. And I think the combination is probably perfect because we know what the questions are, we know what to look at, and it's back and forth in terms of what. So again, I want to thank you very much for giving us your time because I know it's valuable, and you're just an unbelievable resource. And just, I would go as far as to say, I think you have a future in the field.
Well, I can't thank you both enough. This has been delightful, and we knew it was going to be an easy conversation, but
It was.
yeah, it definitely was. You guys are great, and I feel so welcome and grateful to have been a part of the podcast today.
Well, great. Okay, and we will have you back.
You got it.
And maybe we'll talk some more about GLPs and that sort of thing. Anyway, okay, I need to give a plug for my weight loss program, Transformation Weight Control. And if you have something you want to let the people know, if there's a way you want them to contact you for something, or if you're looking for subjects remotely or something, now's your time. And we'll put your contact information also in the show notes.
I always tell people, LinkedIn's a really great way if you're in the professional LinkedIn space. I'm also on, Instagram, Renee J. Rogers, PhD, but I'm mostly in the LinkedIn space because I mentioned before, comprehensive care is important. So I share evidence-based information, the true science behind things from experts that, like the protein question, I put my protein colleagues out there and tell you who they are so you can learn from them too. So I like to keep it.
So, all right. Well, we'll make sure we have those. In fact, if you want to just send me the links that you would like us to post, we'll put them in the show notes so that people can find you. And then finally, I just want to say, so I did create and direct the Transformation Weight Control online, and we have a bunch of different programs. The thing I'm most proud of right at the moment is our aging workshop and the GLP medication support group, because 2 years ago, people were coming to me, asking me questions, sounded like they'd had bariatric surgery, and they hadn't, but they didn't know what to do with this feeling of fullness and not being hungry and no food noise and everything. And I said, they need a support group. And I started one, and it's the only one in the country. And we're doing beautifully. We do it in 12-week sessions. People renew every 12 weeks. There was a paper in Annals of Internal Medicine that showed 25,000 visits to the emergency room in 2022 and 2023, secondary to side effects of GLPs. In our 20 months, not one person has gone to the emergency room because we have them there 4 times a month for 75 minutes, myself and a registered dietitian, teaching them, educating them, taking them through all of it so that they manage, because the failure of these GLPs that you read about are not due to the medication. The medication is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. There's a different failure. Either somebody's not teaching properly or something. So I want to just put a plug in for that. People can reach me at rich@transformationweightcontrol.com. You can also make an appointment on our website at transformationweightcontrol.com, and I have free consult. So anyway, just want to have that. Need to say that. Anyway, again, thank you. Just a delight, and I couldn't ask for more.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. This was great.
Yep. Okay. That's a take. We're done.